Good morning, everyone. I am so happy that you could join us today. I'm Chef Sonja here. I work here at General Mills. I am a CEC, CDM, CFPP, so I am very comfortable with food service, long-term health, and senior care. And so today I want to help walk through, things have changed in recent days. We always had a hard time in healthcare. It was always thin. We were trying to do a ton, with little or no help and no time. And, now things are even more stressful. So between, people needing time off and just the way things are going and the shift in dining, we really have, no time to get things done because everything's rushed. We have no staff because maybe half of them are out. Or maybe we have temporary staff who really have no skill. So we need to focus on that no labor part as well, where you can give somebody a set of instructions that's maybe 1 or 2 steps, just so that we can make sure they get it right. And it's not an insult, it's just reality. And then the last one, we're paying more for like PPE and, disposable plateware and other things because we've had to shift our dining model. And so we need to make up those pennies somewhere else. So we're using one more hashtag of no waste. And so those are the things that we're going to feature in each category that we're going to look at today. We're actually going to look at General Mills' line of food service products so that we can embrace speed scratch to keep our sanity, to try and get our menus out on time and help our staff make a lot of products in short order. The first one that we're actually going to start with is biscuits. Frequently we think of them as a bread basket or maybe as a sandwich carrier. Now that we're maybe not quite back to communal dining yet, whether it's in the cafeteria or the main dining room, many of you are doing room service distribution or in-suite dining where you can go to the satellite kitchen. I don't know if some of you have cottages, depending on how your community is laid out for your residents, whether it's dorms, cottages, a main building with, several arms to it. The idea is that it's really hard to keep food hot for 2 hours because with the new distribution model, I need to make it once and then I need to send my staff around the building to go deliver the food because the likelihood is we don't have, CNAs or anybody else to do that many distribution points where previously, we were prepping in the kitchen and then we just go through a door, we had a service window and then we were already in the dining room. So at really short order, we didn't have to worry about plate covers or pellets or, basically cook hold for 2 hours. So that is actually why I started with biscuits. Because you can, in fact, hold for 2 hours comfortably, remarkably, with no product loss. And, possibly up to 4 before you see any change in service. And so I stand behind that. One of the things I want to show you is when you have, because you can't have community events in mass anymore, a lot of the people on the DIS list, we've talked about having hallway parties. So it's kind of like, here's your patio in the hallway. And so everybody gets, a lawn chair at the edge of their room. That way they can still see their neighbors in the hallway, but they're socially distanced at the 6 feet. And then we actually just kind of take a service cart. So whether we're doing cards or bingo or whatever, we can still chat with our neighbors, talk with our neighbors. So I wanted to start with the biscuits because we're actually going to do something called biscuit bites. It can be beignets, it can be poppers, whatever you want to call it. But I want to show you how easy it is. So normally to handle a knife, you need somebody who has skill because you're worried about people cutting themselves. So I'm actually using a plastic bench scraper. Okay, you could actually do this on your arm and not break skin. So what I'm doing is taking that, I'm cutting these. I thawed this for about 5 minutes for the biscuit. I took it just before we started the show. And I'm gonna throw these in a deep fryer. It was that simple to cut them, slack them, cut them. You can actually have some already in your refrigerator overnight. The next thing, once you fry them, you're gonna take them out. You can put them in cinnamon sugar. You can put them in powdered sugar. I did some with garlic powder and Parmesan. You can also use your favorite no salt seasonings. There are a lot of blends that you can choose from. A lot of different zing in there. So power for your buck. I also have one in our front line that has a sweet garlic chili sauce and some sesame. So really this is about having something so now you can have hot food when you do these activities in the hallway. So maybe you have a beverage service and a hot thing. And it can be as simple as once they come out, you can actually put them in a paper boat. You could slide them in a pouch. That way they're individually wrapped, so you can throw them in a cane row or a warming cabinet so they're covered once you leave the kitchen, and then you can transport and kind of deliver to each of the suites as you go. I'd love you to go ahead and try it. And 6 servings is 1 biscuit. It was 6 pieces. So that way you can still control what your portion size is. We're going to actually walk through the rest of the items on the table. We have a biscuit hot brown, which gives you a center of the plate. And one of the things that I love about the Pillsbury line of biscuits is we have so many sizes to choose from. So sometimes you have people who don't have really large appetites. We have a 1.2 ounce biscuit and a 2.2 ounce biscuit dough that you can use that fits much more in that smaller menu plate profile. But if you have somebody who's still feeling the love, we got a 4.5 ounce biscuit too. We have a 3.17 that's an easy split. If you have waffles or paninis or any of those kind of equipment, you can actually take the dough, you can put it in the waffle iron, and now you've made a waffle biscuit bun. And so it's just one more way to get something fun or texture in there. And it splits because it's already easy split, that once you put it in the waffle iron, it splits by itself. So you don't even have to have 2 on each side. So in the front row, we actually have a selection. We have the biscuit donuts, the biscuit beignets, and the biscuit bites, the savory bites. You can add a dipping sauce if you'd like. Right next to it, we actually have a flatbread collection. All we did was we thawed the dough, we stretched it. You can also bake it between 2 pieces of parchment paper with a sheet pan, and then you don't have to stretch it at all. You don't have to thaw it. The weight of the sheet pan will do the work for you. Right next to that, we actually added some coarse sugar and made some fresh berry shortcakes with our biscuits. So that way, if you don't know how to bake, that's okay. You can still have baked goods. The hot brown, that one's just fun because it's delicious loving. We have biscuit pepper gravy. We have some smoked turkey. We have pepper bacon, fresh garden tomatoes, and a bit of cheese. The only thing we put on the plate for that one was just an orange twist because, that's a meal right there. And then if you have leftovers, one of the things that you can do is a biscuit bread pudding. Frequently, people just put eggs, sugar, and a dairy product. You can use a non-dairy product too. It doesn't have to be cow's milk. You can use almond milk, rice milk. I can also encourage you, you can try and make them with hot chocolate. You can make them with eggnog. You can make them with pumpkin pie batter. So all of those give you one more flavor profile that you can add to your bread pudding. I actually bake them off in foil pans because then I can cut and shape them as I want. You can do squares, triangles, circles, punch them out, build towers, whatever you like. Use plate scrapers to cheat with the sauce. We did whipped cream on the front, a little bit of salted caramel, and then I had some dried apple chips. Those were actually bruised apples that came inside of our case, and we didn't want to waste them. So all we did was we trimmed off the blemishes, cut them thin, threw them in the oven overnight with a low fan, seriously 150 degrees, low fan, came back in the morning, they were perfect. So now they're going to hold for a month. So that's just great. If you want them to not oxidize, you can toss them in some lemon juice before you put them in the oven to dry out, your choice. Au naturel is very tasty as well. Let's go ahead. We're going to move on to our cinnamon roll collection. I actually did sticky buns 5 ways because I was feeling some love. Basically, I had the cinnamon rolls, and you can do equal parts brown sugar and heavy cream. You put them in the bottom of the pan, and then you put your cinnamon roll in there and bake it off. And then you invert your pan, and you have a sticky bun, really easy. If you like extra caramely, like really loose sticky paste on there, you put in double the heavy cream. That's simple. Now, what happens if you have fruit left over or bacon left over? I know, go figure, who has leftover bacon? But we made some smoky caramel rolls, and so we actually put bacon in the bottom of one. We mixed orange marmalade with another and added some almonds. And then we added some cranberries in one. So we actually have lots of different flavors happening. And again, you can choose any size you want. We have a 0.9, a 1.5, a 3 ounce, a 5 ounce, a 5 ounce twirl, and a 4.2 ounce twist. So you have lots of options. So this way you don't need a cut or anything. You can just take, bake, and go. So that's why place and bake is our acronym that we use. Also, from a finishing standpoint, if you use the sticky paste, you don't need to glaze, finish, or ice your buns. The great part is when you add that sugar to it, now you've added hold time to it. So if you want to serve those warm for your breakfast, now you're going to get 2 hours out of those too. Normally, if you have your cinnamon rolls, you really only get about a half-hour service window if you want to serve it warm. Otherwise, they're great for up to 2 days. We just put a clear coat on it. It's equal parts corn syrup and water, so we glaze them out of the oven. At that point, if you only bake once a week, you can actually bake, freeze, and then when you take it out, you can glaze it with melted frosting. We have a gold medal RTS, which is ready to spread. Icing, it comes in an 11-pound tub. And the great thing I love about the gold medal frosting is that you can heat it, string ice it over the top of your rolls, and then it sets back up so the surface is dry to the touch. So if you need to individually wrap these, okay, because now that you have food that's leaving the kitchen to go to a different distribution point, we know we need to cover all of our stuff once it goes in the hallways for transport to the end destination. So whether or not you're using pellet covers or plastic wrap, you don't really want all your frosting stuck to the plastic because that's just sad. So that's why I like the gold medal frosting, because then it stays on your cinnamon roll where it belongs. So we're going to move on from, I have one more cinnamon roll. I'm not sure if Eric can help us. We actually did, sometimes you have people who have birthdays. Most of us, at least once a year, we have a birthday. Some of us have them many times a day or many times a year. But all we did, we took a cinnamon roll, we piped some chocolate fudge gold medal frosting on it, and then put some little red heart sprinkles on it. So that way, if you found out just today it's somebody's birthday, okay, you have an instant birthday cake. Just like that. And so I think it's really fun that, okay. So Eric can go. So I think it's really fun that you can have individual items for pop-up. Oh, there you go. So Eric's going to help us out and bring some stuff into shot for the camera. So that way you can see the birthday cake cinnamon roll. The next one that we're actually going to talk about is scones. Okay, so I want to go ahead and demo some scones for you too. So you're going to notice when you get scones, we have two different kinds. We have a sweet scone and we have a savory scone. They're delicious. If you get the variety pack, they come with this overwrap packaging on them, and that's because you're going to get 3 different flavors in a case. You usually get 3 blueberry and then 2 of each of the supporting flavors. And so the cool part is, so they're separated. You can pull what you need out of the case. When you buy a single case flavor, so like say the jalapeno cheddar, or maybe you just really love double chocolate, you can get a single case and those just have a separator sheet. Now they're really easy to break apart. So I'm going to take this out of the pouch. And so you'll notice they're coming pre-scored, and it is just this easy to break them apart. So that's a whole scone. Now the kicker is sometimes that's a whole lot of scone. Okay, maybe you don't want to have 3.7 ounce serving. Sometimes we have smaller appetites. So we're going to use that same cutter, because I want to show you how easy it is. We're going to use that same cutter. We're cutting through frozen again to cut the pieces. I'm cutting them in 8s. So I'm actually cutting each scone in quarters. Now, just to save time and labor, I don't want to dunk 8 things 8 times, because that's a lot of work. So I took what I just cut. I'm going to pick it up as a quarter. I dipped it in a little pan of water. I'm going to dip it in a little pan of coarse sugar. And now I can separate them for my sheet tray so that I can bake them separate. And now I have little scone bites. Okay? So the reason why I like this is sometimes you just don't want a whole lot of product, you know? Or maybe I want to have 3 different flavors of scone bites. I don't want to have a whole one. So that's the benefit here. So just that fast, you can knock out like a whole case. So on that realm, We actually have a selection up here that we did. We have scone bites, scone cookies, tea cookies, scone Danish, big scones, little scones, garnish scones. I want you to go ahead and feel empowered to go ahead, generalmillsfoodservice.com, and just type in the word scone. Play, explore, just have a blast. There are so many different options out there, and the idea is that fast, that quick, one step, okay? It didn't add any extra cost. With the savory scones, same thing, okay? Sometimes a big scone is delicious, but that's a lot in one serving. So what we did was we cut some in half, and we made some spicy BLTs. We did some in baby bites, and then I even did one as breakfast. So if you wanted to have like the room service brunch, we cut the scone into quarters and stuffed it into a muffin cup. I put 1 tablespoon of egg and 1 tablespoon of ham and 1 tablespoon of cheese. That's it. And now I have a Denver breakfast omelet in a spicy jalapeno cheddar scone, and then it's gonna hold for 2 hours because these are biscuit scones. So you get that extra hold time built into it. So yum there. The next thing I wanted to cover is we actually have pie dough sheets. And I'm kind of going to split the table with it. The first section I have is this is going to be a pot pie, like a chicken pot pie. And this one's going to be a margarita berry cobbler. And what I did was actually to texturize the surface, I just drag a fork through it, because now it gives it a pattern, and when you egg wash it, it gives it a whole different appearance instead of just a plain pie sheet. So in my opinion, it mirrors like if you would have spent the time to braid your pie. I love, a lattice pie top. But who's got the time for that right now? So if you can get the same visual textures that you would get from a braid by just drawing a fork across it, there you go. The egg wash is actually optional because it does bake up like a pie. You don't normally have to egg wash a pie crust, and so you don't have to egg wash this one either. I did egg wash the fruit one just so that we could get a little bit more sheen on it because I put sugar on it. Usually when I do the savories, I tend to put black pepper or Parmesan on there, and so that actually leads to the next two. I have pie rounds, which is the same dough, but our pie round actually has a laminate spray on there. And so it mirrors having an egg wash on it. So that I'm actually going to demonstrate next. And the reason why I love the Pillsbury pie dough circles, well, there's a lot of reasons. It's actually one of my favorite products, is when you have a meal period, what do you do with your leftovers? You cool them, you cover them, you date and label them, you put them in the cooler, and they go there to die. Okay, well, I want to get my money back out of it. So I actually take at the end of the shift, you break down the steam table or whatever it is that you're doing your point of distribution, put it in the cooler or freezer so that you get a quick chill. Because we do still have to have safe food handling. First, last, and always. Safety first. So I'm going to quick chill my leftover ingredients. At the same time, I'm going to pull my dough out to thaw. Because I don't know how many to pull out until I know how much filling I got left over. So at this point, I took leftover scrambled eggs. I think I had 2 pieces of bacon left over. I added a little bit of cheese, but you can also do a salsa. So these are the pie dough circles. This sheet is because when you peel it back, there's a laminate spray. So now that side's already egg washed. So if you wanted to dip this in almonds or coarse sugar and make like apple hand pies, then that's awesome because then you could coat both sides at once. Then you would turn it over, put your filling in the side, egg wash it, and then crimp it off, and then you're good to go. So I think we have samples of that somewhere too. So we're actually gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show you quickly how to knock 6 of these out. Because this is one you could even have your dishwasher do. So we're going to turn that sticky side down. I'm going to take some egg wash. I made a fresh batch because I just want to egg wash the part that we're going to crimp closed. If you do these inside out, So you're going to put that sticky on the inside. You don't need to egg wash at all, because then you don't have to egg wash the outside, because remember we just said when we had the half pie sheets, the pie dough sheets, we don't need egg wash because it's pie dough. And so same thing here, but it's really just to give you that extra sheen if you would like it. Now portion control, because we want everybody to get the same one. Now, yes, you see it's not quite even, but that's okay. I want you to fold it in half from the sides. So you're basically going to fold the wings. I'm going to have you pinch with your fingers, set it down. Pinch with your fingers, set it down. And just this fast, because then once we lay it flat and we can go back and do the finger pinch this way, then we can go ahead, once we've got that second half done, then if you want, we can gently press to even it out in the pocket. So other than the brush, which you could actually use your hands if you want, if you didn't own a brush. And so just like that, we have 6 ham pies done. Now, I would know, if I'm going to start, you don't have to bake these off like this. The great part about this is I can stop now and freeze them. But if you suddenly have like 100 ham pies in your cooler because you're doing this every day or every shift, well, how are you going to know? So you can do a system when we do fruit pies where it's like 1 slash is apple, 2 is cherry, 3 is peach. You can do something like that. You can write it down on your parchment, but you know somebody's going to be helpful one day and go clean the freezer and they're going to downsize everything. And then you're going to suddenly have like all of them assorted in one bag and nobody knows what's what anymore. You can also make 2 hash marks, because it is best if you actually cut a vent in them prior to baking, whether it's the large ones or the small ones. You can also color code them. When I did the one, I have a turkey it's called Taco Tuesday hand pie. Basically, it's taco meat and cheese. So it's, it's a taco and pastry. And then we served it with a yellow rice and a black bean and corn salsa. That one we actually brushed with the salsa on the outside, so you could see the exterior was red from the salsa. On the breakfast hand pie that has scrambled eggs, sausage, and then biscuit gravy, that one we actually garnished with coarse black pepper, so that way think pepper gravy that goes with the gravy that's on the inside. So you use these cues that you can mark them. You can use paprika. You just have to remember once it gets wet, it will bleed a little bit, so it browns a little faster. If you're going to use spice blends, again, I recommend a no salt spice blend. There's so many to choose from. Really feel empowered there. At this point, you don't need an egg wash, because remember that sticky side already had it. But you freeze these solid, and then you can actually bag them up. The idea is that you just have a way to go ahead and process your stuff fast, quickly, instead of having all those little leftover containers. I think, yes. Okay, so we're going to set this one aside. In the rest of the display, we showed, we had the pie circle. We did it on top of a tin. We did it on top of a cast iron. The one that's up front is actually a biscuit that was baked between 2 pieces of parchment. We do this in K-12 because we don't have access to this particular product, but it gives you one more way that if you wanted to keep your filling hot in one location and then bake the biscuit topper in another, that you can assemble to order. So maybe if you're doing the cottage style, so that you're going to each of the satellite kitchens, then all your product stays separate. You can, for people who need texturized diets, that way they can use it as a dipper in there, so that way you could have something that's more interactive with your product. So I think that just adds some more fun to it. I'm going to show you that if you do the pie dough sheets, you can make a strudel. And all we did was we did the texturized thing. We laid some prepared macaroni and cheese and some prepared pulled pork down on the center. We did 1 egg wash on one side, folded it over in thirds, baked it off like a pastry strudel. And then we actually just cut slices. We served it with some greens and some mini corn muffins. So that was our menu plate. Again, because you have something that's en cru, wrapped in pastry, you get a longer hold time. So this way, whether you're prepping 2 hours ahead or just because it takes 2 hours to deliver the product between all of your service areas, we're trying to keep that in mind with how do we make your life easier? Because we know you don't have time to batch as frequently as we did when we had, the dining room service right outside the kitchen. And then up top, we just showed the hand pies with the taco and with the breakfast. But then I also wanted to show you that with the pastry circles, so with these pie circles, if you bake them off, Chef Kevin, I'm going to give you this cart and let you bring the other two. So with the pie circles, we actually did some tarts as well, because maybe you don't have time. You just don't have time. I just don't have time. So we actually bake them off plain, and then those will hold for a week at room temperature. Then you have the discretion of, okay, I did a smoked salmon one, I did a fruit one, I did a roasted vegetable one. And so this again takes into account, I have a little bit of something left. I'm gonna turn it into something else. Now on the occasion that you might get some that are broken in your case, you already paid for it. Get your money. So what I did was I turned those into dippers. So I have some with za'atar, I have some with cinnamon sugar, I have some with everything bagel spice. So now whether you have a dessert mousse or you have hummus or maybe you just want to put them in your salad, you have some texturized items. This is also great. So if you need anybody who needs the finger food, whether it's for dementia diets or maybe just for fun because it's good, tasty, and crunchy, yeah, don't throw that product away. Nobody cares whether or not their crouton is exactly the same as the next crouton. So that's the principle behind this, is that it is okay if you have this shape and this shape next to each other, as long as they're both tasty, delicious, and you can dip them. So that's the principle. We actually had some that we did like a sriracha slice blend in there too. So if you want to have something like a tasty garnish to maybe go with, that taco plate, or maybe you did your own bean dip. So again, this could be something either for your afternoon breaks, or just to even throw in your buffet, because you can have smaller service items without having to get, too wild about it. But it's pinching every last penny out of your storeroom. In the next set that we have further up the aisle, we actually threw in some mix for you too. Mix is more cost effective in some applications, and so we wanted to show you. The first one is a big loaf. I baked it in a shotgun pan, which is basically, you have a 2-inch full steam table pan, and a shotgun is 1/2 of that, but lengthwise versus the shortwise. And so that holds 3 pounds of batter, which happens to be exactly the same as one of our tube set batter tubes. So you have the option of either using the tube set batter or you can use mix. Both work wonderfully in that application. In this particular one, I had bananas that were going. So yes, indeed, we made banana bread. I love the fact that in the gold medal variety mix, you can do it, and we didn't get over browning from the bananas, where sometimes when you make banana bread from scratch, it almost gets that ultra brown sugar rich leather on the exterior just to bake it all the way through. We didn't have that issue with this one. We were done in 35 minutes because the way we were able to distribute it across the pan. And then the great part about that is that now you can have even slices. So if you were going to make like bar fingers or quick bread fingers, so if you don't have muffin pans, problem solved. Use a steam table pan, and then you can just slice it down that way, so you can still get even consistent servings and nobody feels cheated. The next one that we did just in front of that, we had some leftover ham, some leftover scrambled eggs. We made some mini Denver muffin, basically ham and cheese muffin bites. And again, this was more like, so sometimes you just have really small eaters at breakfast. They don't want a big breakfast. They want a cup of coffee, their newspaper, and either a roll or something really tiny, because then they'll be back for lunch. This one's great because you're able to get a little bit more protein in there. You're able to fold in those remnants, have really small bites. And then this way too, you can almost have them in your satellites 5 to 10 seconds in the microwave. So bake ahead and then you can heat on demand. So this saves you time in the morning too, because you really don't have to think about it later. The next one we're gonna look at is brownie mix. And we're just gonna pause there and honor the brownie mix. This is gold medal brownie mix. I love it. It's tasty, it's fudgy. The thing that I love about it is that you can do so many different sizes and shapes with it. So we did some mini bites. Spray your pan because you can't use paper liners with brownie mix or it's going to stick. You can use foil liners, but those cost money. And well, remember, we're not spending money this week. We're saving money this week. So we made the mini bites. We did a strawberry mousse. And then we had some fruit that was just starting to bruise. And so we trimmed the fruit, used that as our topper. Today we actually did garnish it with some mint, but hey, who's counting? That's optional. The one next to it, we made an espresso brownie. That one, I don't know how many of y'all have like coffee left in your urn at the end of the night. Okay, so it's not exactly espresso, but it tastes pretty darn strong, so it works perfect in brownies. And so we kind of made these coffee brownies that way. And all we did was we used 100% coffee liquid, and that was what we hydrated our brownie mix with. I like using the foil pans because, like I said, the brownies don't stick to foil, but they do stick to paper. So this way I can pop them out, I can freeze it, pop it out, get nice, surgical, clean, bite size, whatever size you want to pick. So whether that's a triangle or it's a 1x1 or whatever. I also love our gold medal mix because you can add your own particulates. Basically, that means chips, Oreos, M&Ms. Okay, whatever the spirit moves you, that's right for your brownie. And I'm actually going to come into shot on this one. Because remember we had the birthday over there with the cinnamon roll? Okay, I'm not really sure which person created this. It's called couch potato brownie or kitchen sink brownie. It's got bacon, Doritos, Cheetos, caramel corn, chocolate fudge icing, and it really is the equivalent of 2 brownies. We baked it in a mini loaf pan. All I did was I scraped out the bowl. So after I made the regular brownies, I went back in with that plastic bench scraper and I scraped out the bowl because I'm too cheap to send it to the dish machine. I'm like, okay, no, that's 2 more servings. So I got the 2 servings, and this is going to be somebody's birthday cake. And the cool part is these don't have to be perfect. This can be your end of the bag remnants on your snack mix too. But so this, I always call this, and this is no offense, this is my dude birthday cake because, who doesn't want this? And it's just got kind of that vibe to it. And then just in case you need something to wash it out, I'm not supporting the brand. I'm just saying, if they're allowed to have it, let them have it. It's their birthday. So we had, I think, one more section in there. With the muffin mix, we also did some savories where we basically packed, it's called the One Box Wonder. You can pack 40% solids in there in addition to the mix. What that equals to is 2 pounds of fruit in a 5-pound box of prepared mix, and that gives you this awesome looking coffee cake. We also made a streusel with the muffin mix, and in that streusel it's 5 pounds of mix, 1 pound of butter. You can put it in a mixer if you want, or if you want to make smaller batches. I just mix it by hand, so it's the old style. I did a 1/4 box and 1 stick of butter, and I go like this until it looks like streusel and ship it. It freezes great. The cool part about that is I use the gold medal cake. You can use muffin mix too, because you can have a chocolate streusel, a yellow cake streusel, white cake streusel, spice cake streusel, carrot cake streusel. So whatever the spirit moves you, that's the streusel of the week, and it's right for you. The idea is you can use whatever you have in a building. You can also add oatmeal to it. You can add granola to it. So you can add other textures to it, but it crisps up nicely. It gives you that soft texture. And that was actually one of the things I almost forgot to call out with the scones. So our sweet scones are actually a cookie muffin type formula. So they are soft to the tooth. You don't need a coffee to wash them down. I love that they say soft for days. The biscuit, the sweet, the savory scone is also biscuit soft. The idea is it's soft and fluffy in the interior, so it stays moist for the 2 hours. But it has just that gentle, crisp, dual texture on the outside. And so it's not like your traditional European biscuit that's more of the, they call it a cream style biscuit, but it has more tooth to it. It's meant to be drier. These are definitely moister, sweeter biscuits. And even the savory, it's got that beautiful biscuit texture. So I love that because not everybody wants to spend an hour chewing on their stuff or dunking it in their coffee. We are now going to pivot to yogurt because this will be our last 5 minutes of demo. So one of the things, sometimes you just want a refreshing beverage. And sometimes you just want to get a little more protein in your diet. Pardon the noise. We're actually going to take our bench scraper. You can do it with plastic. You can do it with a ruler. You can do it with a spatula. Because I'm too cheap to throw this out. So I'm scraping every last drop in there. Whoops, wrong side. Got to give a rinse. Sanitation first. And then, just that simple, I have smoothies. It's equal parts yogurt and fruit juice. If you want to have a thicker viscosity, so if you have anybody who's on like levels 1 through 3, you need to have a certain level, you're going to have to work with a speech therapist. And I know in senior living we don't have that as much. So in this occasion, we're just going for delicious. I used orange juice this time. I have a fancy for mango lassies, and so I tend to do that one. You can do it with carrot juice. You can do it with tomato juice, any juice. The only thing I'm going to call out is if you add straight lemon juice or straight lime juice, they're so acidic, you're going to actually start making cheese, so it's kind of like paneer. So it will thicken additionally as it stands because of the acid. So if you're doing a high acid, don't hold it more than a day, okay? If you're going to do the low acid fruits, you can actually get 2 days out of it. But if you need to have a modified texture, like an actual modified texture, you want to have the speech therapist evaluate it at the 30 minutes, the 3 hours, and the 12 hours, just to verify that it still meets all your requirements. I'm having a glass of that as soon as we stop. The next one I want to do, so 2 ingredients. So the next one I want to do is actually a yogurt mousse. And you're going to see in that front row, we have a mother lode collection of products. Just this simple. We're going to add equal parts by weight, not volume, by weight, of yogurt. This is Yoplait low-fat vanilla yogurt, and non-dairy whipped topping. So whip the topping first. Don't use canned. It doesn't work the same because those are aerosolized. But you can use like the frozen liquid quartz and whip them. What we're going to do is we're going to mix these two together. We're going to whip them up. I just wore that. That was special. And if you want to have flavors, a little specialness there. I don't endorse any particular company, but you may be familiar with these products. These are great ways if you want to flavor your mousse. Today we chose strawberry shortcake because month of June we have a ton of strawberries. So we're going to choose strawberry. And for the 1 pound recipe, 1 pound whipped topping, 1 pound yogurt is 1 packet. If you're going to use the big quart size flavors, then it's 1 tube for 4 pounds, 4 pounds, 4 pounds. So for this batch, we're just going to tear it, add it, yeehaw, and we're going to whip it, and we're going to have some awesome mousse. And it's just that simple. You don't need to add food coloring. I think it's purely discretional. When you can get the flavor, you don't need to add artificial things. And who remembers egg whites from school? That's how you know that your mousse is ready. So we did that. From there, so all of those really awesome desserts that we have up in the front row, we have a mudslide pie, a strawberry shortcake, we have overnight oats, we have smoothie bowls, we have extra collections. And all I did was I took leftover. I have leftover trimmed fruit that was starting to bruise. I have leftover cake that was starting. That this is after I trimmed and made my bar tort up there. And so then I put my mousse, put it in a bag, some mousse on the bottom, some cake squares, some fruit, more, little mousse. And then, again, not endorsing a brand, but really handy. A little bit of love on top, ship it. Okay, so the last but not least, because the world is awesome, I must get on my politically correct COVID mask. Hopefully you'll still be able to hear me in the speaker. Okay, I'm getting a nod. Excellent. Whoops. Too many mics on the ear. There we go. Okay. And I'm okay with the wire. And so for those of you who have like cottage dining, or you really miss self-serve, I think we can still have yogurt bars. What we're going to do is we have our sanitizer bucket. We have our gloves. You might be able to get somebody from activities to do this. We have our toppings for our yogurt bar in containers. We easily can get covers, little plastic Cambro covers for these. And when we do the in-slighting, we can stop at each resident's door and say, would you like a customized breakfast parfait today? We have our serviceware. We have our yogurt on ice. Our Yoplait comes in strawberry, blueberry, and low-fat vanilla. And so these are really easy that you can pipe and go. And so just making sure I can see where I'm at. The mask always makes it fun. But we can start with that. Add their toppings. We have granola chips. Who says it has to be all fresh fruit? We can have fun things. We can have chocolate chips. We can have marshmallows. We can have Grammy bears. The idea is that you're still offering something that's customized and made to order just for them. And we're still following safe protocols. So at this note, I want to go ahead and open it up for questions. And I'm going to go ahead and stand back there so y'all can see the table again. You have been such a great audience, but I want to go ahead and I want to hear what you guys have to say, what you would like to ask about.
Thank you so much, Sonja.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm starving, I'm thirsty, I'm everything, all that stuff.
Excellent. Winning. Because then your guests will also be hungry for it too.
They will. They definitely will. And we do have some questions coming in
Okay.
from some of the attendees. The first one is a few people asked, is it the call being recorded? Yes, the call is being recorded. We will send that as a follow-up. If you fill out the survey, we can send it to you through email. But we do have a few product-related questions.
Okay.
One question regarding Yoplait yogurt.
Yes.
How long can the smoothie mixture with Yoplait yogurt be held in the cooler? Can you make it up the day before you would need it?
Yes, you can. Maximum 48 hours. Ideally, you're making it once a day and sending it to wherever your service areas are at. That said, you may make it and freeze them, because we used to do that, especially in K-12. We could freeze the portions, then we put them out, and because if you had tray line before, you have hot food hot, cold food cold. Well, sometimes they neutralize each other and then everything's kind of meh. So if you freeze the smoothie, then that way by the time your guest gets it, then it's more like a slushie, and that's just so awesome. So yeah, try that. And especially during the summer months, that's kind of nice to even just put it in the freezer half hour anyway, just to get that edge.
Perfect. Another question coming through now regarding the hand pies and empanadas.
Yes.
Can you go over the fact that we can refreeze the dough after it is stuffed, or do we have to bake it the day that you make it / assemble it?
Yes. Okay, so yes, you can refreeze it. The reason why I say that is I want you to make sure, okay, we are following HACCP here. So once you're done, because remember, if you're using remnants or remainder products to utilize your inventory, you need to treat everything like a leftover, including the dough. So I only want to handle it once. If I bake it with the stuff in it and then try and reheat it later, I technically have 2 heats, and so it's already canceled itself out. So if I cool my fillings, make sure I'm tracking that as my most hazardous item. I thaw the dough just enough. That's why if you put the one in the freezer before break, you pull the dough out, the 2 are ready, put it back in the freezer, then the dough really has not gotten temperature abused, that it's only been out like a maximum half hour, so we're still in our 2-hour service window. You can bake these from frozen. And so actually when we do these for trade shows, we make them up all ahead, stuff them all ahead, transport them frozen, because we want to have that safe handling tracking the whole time. Bake them off, and then you're good for service. If you have any remnants, give them to your staff. So if you did bake them all the way, let your staff have like free employee meal. Yeah, because you just don't want to bake twice when your fillings already had one heat already on it.
That's great. One other thing, I know a lot of healthcare operators, in terms of menu creation, they make their menus 2 weeks out.
Yep.
I know you mentioned prepping all these random amounts, but how would you advertise that? What do you recommend in that regard?
So that's a great question. So one of the things that I used to do is I either built in, this is my hand pie day, and then I made it like flavor of the week. So this way, maybe this week is Italian, next week is Mexican, next week is Asian. You pick it, and then in your freezer, maybe you have a bus tub for each. So that way, as you're building with your ingredients that you have your daily remnants, whatever they were, then you're really only sitting on your inventory for maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the freezer before you've rotated it back into your regular menu cycle. But this way, you can actually feature it like hand pies or empanadas or whatever. You can put it on your menu, but give it a generic term like breakfast hand pie. So maybe it's chorizo one week and it's sausage another week and it's bacon another week. Or if you don't mind mixing and matching because everybody can have pork, then you're good. So it's really only if you want to keep veggies separate versus something else. But yeah, build it into your rotation, but then you're kind of filling your freezer. So that way it's on your menu. It's just not truly itemized, like every single ingredient that's in there.
Perfect.
Uh-huh.
Another question coming through. How long can the mousse hold at room temp or refrigerated?
Okay, it is dairy because it's dairy yogurt. So I try not to have it out more than 30 minutes because, well, one, dairy is just nicer cold. You can freeze it. We froze all of our things. So once we prepared it, we layered it, and we froze it. And then that way it was chilled for service. So by the time it gets to the resident's room or the service area, then it's nicely refrigerated. It's still cold when you consume it, so you get that nice refreshing consumption. I don't really hold them. The mousse you can hold refrigerated up to 3 days, but I wouldn't do it 3 days as an assembled item, only as a single ingredient.
Perfect. Any other questions that we have from the field? I have one more that I'm almost curious about. But
Okay.
any other ones, please feel free to think about it during this question. Okay, another question, Chef. How would you vary your prep, based on service style? So any suggestions for plating differences, whether that's room service or a dining room model? How would that vary? Exactly.
And so that's one of the things that I kind of mentioned as we were going through, but I want to review again. So if you're doing the restaurant style, well, basically you're making it in the kitchen, going through the pass, and attendees taking it directly to the consumer, you can do a lot more in the way of advanced plating. So you can have cold on the same plate as you have hot. If you're going to do in suite, or room service, you need to keep your hots and your colds separate, because otherwise, like say if you have the pellet, you don't want your fruit to wilt, and likewise you don't want your pastries to get soggy. So there you kind of bundle the stuff and then assemble to order. It's almost like they do when you're on the airline. They send the stuff bulk and then they'll build the plates as they're going out. So that's where you need to be aware that you might need an attendee to assemble, depending on your model. Whether or not it's your kitchen staff that does it, or whether or not you have activities people do it, or if you have CNAs at all. That's kind of the part where if I had the cottage style, I might still be baking in hotel pans, sending it bulk, and then scoop to order, versus if I plated, I might be going for the each, or like the strudel, something that I could cut so it looks intentionally plated, and then just assemble the components as we need them.
Chef Sonja, any last words?
Thank you so much for attending. I know how hard it is to get 1 hour away from kitchen, from everything that else is going on. And so I feel very honored that you spent it with us today. Thank you. Don't forget your CEUs.